them upon the phenomenon that you are seeking to understand. So when you are seeking to understand the I am presence, your I am presence creates a mental image. It is the only thing it can do. Your outer mind, your linear mind creates a mental image. And then it projects it onto the I am presence and says, this is how the presence should be. This is what Mother Mary said yesterday that people do and the fallen beings do with ideas. You create an idea and you project it upon reality. And then you seek to study reality through the filter of the idea, which means you are actually wanting reality to conform to your vision, to validate your vision. But my beloved, we have not given you the concept of the I am presence for the purpose that you should study the I am presence at a distance and come to understand it with a linear mind. We have given you the concept for the purpose that you should come to the point where you can directly experience the I am presence. And this resolves the enigmas of the linear mind. The conscious you is the concept we have given you. It is also an enigma. What exactly is the conscious you? What does it mean that it's pure awareness? Well, it means in one simple sense that it's not dualistic. It is not always operating with two opposites, and therefore having to explain everything within that dualistic mindset. It has the potential to connect to the I am presence, to the ascended masters, to the non-linear mind, to the non-dualistic mind. And it can experience this directly, and you can experience the non-linear reality directly. What was it you have talked about with communication from the heart? It is not linear communication. It is non-linear. It is spherical because it connects rather than divides. Linear thinking can only divide because linear thinking wants to define a form by setting it apart from other forms. What then is the difference between linear thinking and co-creation? Have I not just said that you co-create by envisioning a form and endowing it with your own being? Is there a difference? Well, there is. Is it subtle? Yes. Is it easy to understand? Not with the linear mind. You cannot understand it. But even though you create a form that has existence in time and space and is therefore limited to something that seems linear to you, the form itself is not created by the linear mind. You see, my beloved, you have a mental body. Most of you will say that you think with a mental body. You would therefore say that your linear mind must be a natural part of your mental body. This is the limitation. The linear mind is not a natural part of your mental body. The linear mind is a product of the fall into duality. The linear mind can only see time and space as linear phenomena. That is why you see time moving in increments in a particular direction that is irreversible. That is why you see space, that you can move from one place to another in space. Now, it is not so that the linear mind is evil. It is just that the linear mind is limited to thinking in linear terms. And therefore it sets everything apart from everything else. It can only define forms as being different. But now, listen carefully. The linear mind needs the differences between a triangle and a circle in order to set the two forms apart and identify them. So far, so good. Nothing inherently problematic about this. When you have created a certain form, you have set that form apart from other forms. And then you endow it with your being. But you see, when you are not in duality, you know that that form was created out of your being, which is part of the greater being of the one mind of the Creator and of all life. And therefore, the form is not separate from its source. But to the linear mind, there is no such thing as one source, one mind. And therefore, the linear mind sees forms as different. My beloved, when you first co-created, you did not create out of the linear mind. Your mental body, before you descended into duality, did not think in linear terms, did not have what you call the linear mind now. This is something that came in after the descent into duality. And this means that there is a range of phenomena on earth that are affected by the linear mind. I am not saying they are created out of the linear mind, for they are not. The linear mind cannot create. But the linear mind can form a filter so that you use that to envision certain forms, and then you endow them with your being and bring them into physical manifestation. So humankind has created certain phenomena that are affected by the linear mind. And this, of course, is what the Ascended Masters have told you about, has caused even the densification of matter. The creation of so many inharmonious, imbalanced manifestations that are at war with each other, that are breaking each other down, the creation of diseases, the creation of what you call natural disasters. And all of these unbalanced manifestations are affected by the linear mind. But why is this so? Why is there conflict between certain forms on earth? Why are there conflicts between groups of people? It is because the linear mind can only look at differences, and then it defines one form as being separate from another. The higher mind, the spherical mind, of course sees the differences between different forms. It is not that from the ascended level we cannot see the difference between a circle and a triangle. But we also see that they are not separate forms that are just floating around in space, for they came from the same source. They are endowed with the same consciousness, and this is what unites everything. And so you see that when human beings started creating these more complex soul vehicles, they invested more and more of their beings into these soul vehicles, and suddenly they came to identify themselves with the soul vehicles. And those soul vehicles were affected by the linear mindset because the fallen beings had managed to make the linear mindset dominant on earth. So you created the soul vehicle in response to the linear mindset of the fallen beings. And that is why when the soul vehicle had reached a certain complexity where the majority of the quantity of your being was invested in it, you shifted and started identifying yourself as a linear being. And this is what has caused people to identify themselves based on the outer divisions you see on earth. The two sexes, men and women. Racial groups, ethnic groups, religious groups, political affiliations, national affiliations. And so that is why people are so invested in these outer divisions that they cannot communicate at the heart level, they cannot come to an understanding, they cannot come to an acceptance of each other, they can only see conflict. And that is why there cannot be true unity. So then, what is the only element that can bridge this, that can overcome this. It is love. It is love in the divine sense. We have called it unconditional love to set it apart from the dualistic love of the dualistic mind. The dualistic love defined by the fallen beings, where they have defined what they say, this is true love, and then this is the opposite of love. This is anti-love. There's love, and what is the opposite? Hatred. Well, both hatred and love are defined by the fallen beings out of the dualistic mind and have nothing to do with divine love. Your conscious you can experience divine love. Regardless of how complex your soul vehicle is, regardless of how much of your being is invested in it, regardless of how identified you are with it, you can step outside of that soul vehicle, even for a split second, and experience divine love. And when you experience that divine love, it will transform you. It will transform the way you look at everything, my beloved. The only way for Europe to reach a higher union, that is, a true union, rather than the forced union you have attempted to create, is that more and more people begin to connect to this love, and therefore they become aware that even though we have grown up in different nations, we have something in common. We share something in common. Many people call it humanity. Well, whatever people need to call it, the important thing is that they recognize we have something in common. And this something is more important to us than the outer divisions. Why? Because when you experience that inner source, when you connect to your source personally, and when you meet another person who is connected to his or her source, then you can feel something happening between you when you are together. Suddenly, there is more. There is an old saying that sometimes when people meet, sweet music arises, because you recognize that you come together, and in your union, there is more than you had alone. And what does this do? It makes you feel better, and it makes you feel better about yourself. That is why people want to experience it. And so, as Mother Mary have been saying, there are more and more people who are aware of the value of this, who are becoming more conscious of it, and they want this genuine connection to something higher, however they choose to see it or choose to label it. They want it. And that really is an expression of love. It is a manifestation of love. It somehow transcends the level of consciousness, the sense of self that people have. And suddenly they experience something more. This is what you experience if you open yourself to the presence of the Ascended Masters, to each other at a conference like this. And so, when you connect to that love, you go beyond the linear mind. And therefore, you do not need to see the Creator through the linear mind. You do not need to see love through the linear mind. And therefore, you can begin to resolve these enigmas that I talked about. Does the Creator love you? Well, my beloved, the Creator does love you with an unconditional and infinite love. But see, the Creator has given you free will. And the Creator has absolute respect for that free will. And therefore, the Creator will never, ever impose itself upon you. You can experience the Creator's being, the Creator's love, but you have to open yourself to it. This messenger had this experience as he has described. And it was because he opened himself to the experience, and he was willing to process the experience afterwards and come to the point of overcoming the linear view of God, the linear view of love, and therefore being able to accept that what he experienced was the Creator's love. He also thereby came to understand and experience that the love of the Creator is a love for you, but from your perspective, you will experience it as an impersonal love. This is not because the Creator is impersonal, but is the only way you can experience God's love while you are still in a dense environment and in the four lower bodies that you have on earth. And so, even though you can experience the Creator's being and experience that you are connected to the Creator, you are out of the Creator, and the Creator has love for you, you will, because of the limitations on earth, you will experience it as impersonal. That is why, as it also says in this invocation for loving yourself, that we have given you the image that God the Mother gives you the personal love, the nurturing love. And of course, what is God the Mother? Well, in a sense, everything is the Mother in polarity with the Creator as the Father element. But for you, even though you are an aspect of the Mother, what gives you divine love is first and foremost the Ascended Masters who are working with earth. They are willing to give you divine love, meaning a very personal mother flame nurturing love for you individually. It is, as I said, because of the limitations on earth, impossible to experience the Creator's love as personal, but it is possible to experience the love of an Ascended Master as very personal, very individual. And as one person expressed last night, you can create such a relationship to an Ascended Master that the Master virtually becomes your personal psychotherapist, and you can ask and talk to the Master about everything and ask all kinds of questions, and you will get an answer when you keep in mind that the Master is not answering your questions exactly as they are asked, because often you ask questions from the linear mind. But the goal of the Master is to set you free from the linear mind and your identification with your four lower bodies. And these are the kind of answers you will get. Answers that liberate you, not necessarily answer your question in a linear way. Because often by answering your question in a linear way, the Ascended Master would only reinforce the linear mindset and your identification with your four lower body. Perhaps it would be important for many of you to consider that it is not the goal of studying a spiritual teaching that you understand spiritual concepts with a linear mind. Many Ascended Master students over the decades have been trapped into thinking that they need to study the teaching with a linear mind so that they can understand the teaching, categorize the teaching, label the teaching, and so that they can always come up with a quote from the teaching and recite the teaching to others, and seemingly it fits in every situation. But this is actually a blind alley on the spiritual path. It does not help you, and it can actually take you into the false path where you connect to the false masters in the mental realm, who will gladly make you feel that you are one of the most sophisticated spiritual students on the planet because you can grasp all these concepts with a linear mind. But the real purpose of an Ascended Master teaching is not to give you understanding, but to give you a direct experience of your I Am Presence, of the presence of an Ascended Master, of the presence of the Creator, of the non-linear reality that is beyond the earth. it is this experience that is love. It is this experience that shifts you. As you can see that when people come together and they experience the love between them, it shifts, and now they can suddenly solve outer problems and conflicts that they could not solve before. And so, my beloved, I know that I have already tested your endurance, but I am still not done with my discourse. And so I trust that you will be able to stay with me as I take you through an exercise that is the real dispensation I want to give you, and that I will be with you every time you repeat it. But it may also help you before the exercise to listen to the dictation, because these concepts I have given you are of course not coincidental. They set the stage for the success of the exercise. So I ask you to consider, my beloved, that your goal is to feel good about yourself. Naturally, you can look at the earth and you can apply various models that describes the current conditions on earth. But you could very well apply the model and say that all of the problems on earth, all of the conflicts between human beings, are caused by the simple fact that most people do not feel good about themselves. And in order to compensate for this, instead of changing themselves and their inner beings, they are trying to change the world, and they are trying to change other people. And in their desperate attempt to feel good about themselves by controlling their environment, you have the creation of all of these conflicts. You could even say that this applies to the fallen beings, who from the moment they fell, have not felt good about themselves, regardless of the fact that some of them have incredible spiritual pride. They are still, if you actually look at a fallen being, they do not feel good about themselves. And so they have managed here on earth to take dominion over the earth by making everybody else feel not good about themselves. And this is the only problem on earth from a certain perspective. And so the goal here is to feel good about yourself. And the goal of the exercise is to help you have an experience of that spherical part of your being. Because how do you feel good about yourself, really? Not by having any particular conditions fulfilled on earth, but by connecting to who you really are, to connecting to your higher being. There is no way that your I am present can make you feel bad about yourself. There is no way that experiencing the presence of an ascended master can make you feel bad about yourself. There is no way that experiencing divine love can make you feel bad about yourself. You may have a reaction afterwards that stirs up something in your psychology that then comes out, and that makes you feel bad about yourself. But it was not the experience of divine love. Because while you are in it, you do feel good about yourself. Because your outer self falls away. So, your goal is to feel better about yourself than you feel right now. And therefore I ask you to visualize that you are walking through a forest, dense trees on both sides, but you're not paying attention to them. There's a trail in front of you. You are walking through the forest. You come to a clearing in the forest, and here's one of these observation towers that you have seen many places, where you can walk up, and then you are above the treetops, and then you can look out over the broad landscape. And you are now standing at the foot of this observation tower, and it has several levels. So there's a staircase that leads up to a platform. From that platform, another staircase leads up. You are therefore standing at the ground level. In front of you is a staircase that leads up to the first platform. Do not worry about the top of the tower. You are only looking at the first platform. On that platform stands an ascended master. It is individual for each one of you. Whomever you feel is closest to your heart, that master is standing on the first platform. That master is standing there with open arms. You know that if you walk up the stairs to that platform, The Master will embrace you. And you know you will feel better about yourself when you are given a hug by an ascended Master. But somehow you can't lift your feet from the ground. You are trying with all your might, but both of your feet are stuck to the ground. And you become aware that it is because you are carrying a weight. You're carrying a burden. And it prevents you from walking up the stairs. And so, I'm not asking you to look at this burden in detail. You may get an impression of what it is, you may not, but do not spend mental energy on trying to figure out what this is. Just tune in to the fact that you have a shoulder bag hanging on one shoulder that's weighing you down. And now you look up at the Master, and now you have to make a decision, my beloved. Do I want to ascend that staircase and embrace the Master? Because then I have to take that shoulder bag and simply lift it off my shoulder and let it slide off and fall to the ground. And now you realize that you actually have the power to do this. You can push that shoulder bag, lower your shoulder, push the band of that shoulder bag, and you can let it slide off your arm and it falls to the ground. And now you can ascend that first staircase. And so if you are willing, you are feeling that the weight falls off of you, and you grab the handles and you ascend the staircase, and there is that ascended Master embracing you. And you are embracing that Master. And you are feeling the love of that Master. You are feeling enveloped in that love. And right now, nothing else matters. Now, as you give this exercise at later times, you may want to stay at this level. There is absolutely nothing wrong with staying at the first level, embracing that ascended Master for as long as you like. You may even give this exercise many times and still go to the first level and embrace that Master. But for the sake of the exercise, I now make you aware that you are on a platform and there is another staircase that leads to a second platform above you. And as you walk to the staircase, you see that there is another ascended Master, again individual for each one of you, that is waiting for you with open arms. But again, your feet are stuck to the platform because you have another shoulder bag that's hanging on your shoulder. But again, you realize that if you are willing, you have the power to just gently push it out so that it slides off your arm, falls to the ground. And you are again free to walk up the stairs, and there's the second ascended Master embracing you. And again, you feel the love of that Master, you feel good about yourself, you feel enveloped in that nurturing love of the Mother coming from this Master. Whether you see it as a male or female Master, it is still the nurturing love of the Mother that's coming to you. It is very personal for you. This Master knows you, loves you, does not judge or criticize you, loves you exactly like you are right now. No conditions, except your willingness to embrace the Master. And your willingness to at least temporarily set aside some of the weight you're normally carrying in order to open yourself to the Master's embrace. Why do you need to open yourself? Because otherwise you could not feel the love of the Master. It is not that the Master is not radiating it to you, but you cannot feel it. And so, after some time, you become aware that there is another staircase leading to the third level, and there is another Master. And again, there is a weight that you can slide off. I am not specifying what these weights are because they are individual to you personally. As you give this exercise, the weights may even shift. They may be different. You may get a clearer and clearer vision or a different vision from time to time. That is why I'm not giving you a specific vision. of what it is. It is simply a weight that you feel at the moment, and it prevents you from ascending that third staircase. And you let it slide off, you walk up, and you again embrace the next master. And so, after some time in that master's embrace, there is the fourth staircase, leading up to the fourth platform, and a fourth master is waiting for you. And you again become aware that there's a weight, and you just let it slide off, because now it becomes easier. You let it slide off, you walk up, and you embrace the fourth master. Yes, you may, if you choose, see these masters as being associated with the rays, but it is not necessary to be so linear. Again, whatever comes to you, and it may be a different master for every time you give the exercise. You will walk up the staircase and embrace the fourth master, and you feel that love of that master, and you begin to recognize that each master has a certain quality of divine love, and each master is giving you something different that is exactly what you need to heal some aspect of your psychology. And so you are enjoying the embrace of that master for a time, and as you give the exercise yourself, you can take however long time you want at a certain level. But there comes that point where you become aware that there is another staircase leading to the fifth level. And so again, there's a weight, you become aware of it, you let it slide off, you ascend the stairs and you embrace that master, which again is giving you a slightly different